Hey guys, so here's a short video on how you could use the Polygon Modular Fantasy Hero characters. Guess I'm sounding very tired and with a weird accent, but it's pretty late, so anyway. So instead of going through the code and clicking and showing you how to write stuff, I'll just show you how I did so far, and um, hopefully I won't forget to put my sources on GitHub and share them. So before we start, this is the pack. In theory, it actually does have a lot of armor, so if you're trying to do an RPG or something like that, it's a nice start if you're just a silly developer and have no idea how to design things. Now they do offer, so when you get the package, which I have it somewhere, you have a prefab scene, but I won't open it because I think I already modified the script. And one of the prefab is this modular character that has a character randomizer script. So I'll just activate this for now and deactivate mine. And I also have this interface from RPG and MMO4 user interface. I had it somewhere and I was too lazy to actually design an interface, but this should work with pretty much all the interfaces you have. So this is just, you will also need to click the random button to make it fancier. So this is a randomizer that you click and it will randomize your character, surprisingly enough. Boop, armors, everything, great. Now, if you look closely, you would notice that the colors are pretty much the same all the time, I think. And I saw a lot of people complaining about this on the Synty thing, and this should be easily fixable. If you search for math somewhere, or actually mesh renderer. Okay, so pretty much if you don't have a material, it will take the material from the mesh renderer, but if you actually do have a material, you would want your mesh renderer to pick up your material. So I think this one is the other way around. So I'm actually writing some code. Isn't that great? Okay. Well, this is ridiculous, but maybe I shouldn't import it like a gazillion packs. So you see now it's changing colors, going through all the nice colors that the developers or designers or people, the nice people of Synty did for us. Okay, now, how do I use this in my game or your game or a game? So should I start with the end results? Yeah. So what I've been doing for the last week or something and a lot this morning because that's when my free time is. This is your character. You can create a race, but it pretty much changes the skin color and stuff. You can make it a boy or a girl. You can change his face. Then if you click on the races and stuff, okay, some hair. I think for hair I added a lot of stuff. For eyebrows, which is unfinished, it just has a few options. And also let's add a beard to this. I did not work on the beard, but like this, if it's a girl, the beard disappears. You change the hair color. Pretty sweet. Okay, so how can you do this? So you see I'm using my character script instead of the randomizer, and in order to get this, it's a lot of copy paste from the character randomizing script. But before that, you need, if you had the curiosity to look in how the modular character defines, it's split in three parts: the female parts, the male parts, and the all gender parts. If you look at the male parts, it has some things here. So pretty much all the possible heads are on this mesh. I think it's called a mesh, on this mesh. And you can have all the elements or no elements. I think the no elements is for when you're wearing a helmet. And then the eyebrows, facial hair, and then you get into the armor part. And the same for all gender parts. Interesting is what I've been using is the hair. And the other ones I'm saving them for later when I have an armor or other inventory fancy stuff. Okay, so what do? If we go to the randomizer script, it has a couple of enums, which are pretty sweet. So I just copied them. I created a character helper which just holds a lot of enums and other classes. So I have all the enums from there. And at the end of this script, you would get, and you have two classes, which pretty much is a list of of game objects. And on initialize, it will init this list with all the elements that we saw. So for example, for the, let's say, eyebrow one, it will initialize it, for example, for the male parts, for everything that is files in this eyebrow. So you have this list with all the elements, and you can just set them active or not, because this pretty much is what's done here. So if you go to start, I think, oh, somebody commented a lot of code, and I think it's me. So for start, it calls the build list, which builds all those lists. If you have any enabled objects, it will disable them, and then activate items. So pretty much a default male character, and then it's invoking randomize. And if you go to activate item, it's pretty much this item, set it to active, and all the enable objects, and add them to the enable objects. And I think it's using this when it randomizes, it sets all the objects here to false. Didn't check it, didn't need it. It's fine. Okay, so we have these enums for the gender, race, skin color. I'm not using all of them, but nice to have. And then I created this enum body parts with pretty much everything that was on the, well, I copied these classes here. And for all the elements here, I created a new enum with all of them. Okay, so we have this, and I'm going to use this in my code to do something really shady. Do I really have it? So weird. Okay, so I'm using this to store all the objects. It's a list of game objects, a matrix of a list of game objects. So if I try to draw this to make it a bit clearer, should have prepared this, but hey, paint is always nice. And it's not like I've been doing diagrams all day. So you would have here the mail list, and then for all the mail list, you will have all the parts, and then for all the parts, you would have other list. So let me try to make this prettier. So if we had text here, you would have a reference to gender. Here you would have like head, torso, or even torso. It's torso now. And beard, and so forth. So what do I do with this? In the init helpers part on start, based on how many fields I have in my enums, I initialize this, and equipped is a vector of the actual equipped items or body parts or whatever. And then I have this matrix of lists that I initialize it. So it's 2 because I have 2 genders. It's max parts because it's based on that enum, how many parts I have, and then a list of game objects. And then if you go to build list, it's pretty much a copy paste of that. But then for each of these elements, I add them to the list. So for head, all elements that I build it here, I then add it in all my objects, 0 for male, and then for body parts, head elements, and so forth for each of these parts. So this was fun writing. And the same for build female parts, I initialize them and then reference them in my list. And for the all gender lists, I put them in both lists because I want them easily referenced. So now I have my list built, and I can just define my, but the scrolling is annoying when watching. So I initialize all my parts with -1. -1 means it's nothing there. And I initialize my character as a default male because, you know, male. And then for each of the, I'm going to use this function somewhere. So I extract it into a function, enable character for each of the parts. I try to activate them, and I think the fun is in activate. It's a bit longer than a function should be, and a lot of ifs. Don't do ifs, kids. But pretty much if I if my index, so I try to activate for the item time and the item type and item index. So if we go back here, we would need to specify the gender. This would be the item type, and we reference this through a item index. Or maybe I should have kept this, right? So these are the three levels. I identify the gender. Based on the gender, I find this list. And then on the item type, like for example, I want something for the head. I say, okay, go for the head. And then based on the item index, I know if it's something from here or from here or from here or from here. Easy stuff. If you like overcomplicated structures, you could use dictionaries or other fun items, but lists and matrices are just great. So if the index is bigger than my objects, and this can be easily noticed because I messed something up and I don't think I fixed it, but if I go to appearance, if this actually starts, so I have phase 23 and nothing happens, and then phase 22. So for phase 23, it's more than the phases I have, so it will do nothing because most likely based on that check, it knows that it's over the limit and it shouldn't do much. So it just ignores it. Okay, so for this I set it to no thank you. And then if I had something there previously, I will deactivate it. And then if the item index is a valid one, I will add it to my equipped stuff, and then on all the objects I will set it as active. And the same here, if there was nothing previously equipped and equipped, and the index is okay, I will just activate it and don't have to deactivate the previous one. And I also have a deactivate item, so I go through all the list and deactivate them. I use this in a different function. So this is pretty much the structure that I'm building, and then I can use it nicely. I think I put this in a region because it's cool. So init and helpers, it also has the start and the update, but it's pretty much init and helper. So how can you set, like for example, what happens when you click that set head button? It will send an index and a name. We'll get to that later, but pretty much you're interested in the index because I have the set head here. So if the index is smaller than uh, the number of elements in my list, I will activate the item, and I know I want to put this on the head and with this index. And if I go to activate item that I saw it before, what this does is the gender, which is a variable in this function, so I'm not sending it again. And then the item type, well, this is the activate, so, oh, but now my code looks super weird. We're looking here. So first I put the item index in the equipped item type. And then for this gender, for this item type, I want to reference this. So this pretty much returns this part will reference all these two. So it will decide on which of these boxes I want to go. So if I go through head, it will look gender. Okay, it's one. Then on head, look for this, and then it will reference. Whoa, how do I draw an arrow? Man, who knew it's so hard to do point? And it will reference this eventually. Boop. It will know to go here, and then based on the item index, it will find item index. It will find my element and activate it. Hopefully I'm explaining it and this is vaguely interesting, although I bet it's not. Okay, so I have these functions in my regions of UI setters where I can set the head, set the eyebrows, set the hair. For hair, I reduced the index a bit because there is no 0 option with no head. So if it's actually 0, I reduce it to -1, and for -1, it won't activate it. You see, I'm not verifying here if the index is bigger than 0 because I'm doing it in the activate item type. The same for set facial hair here and for set race. Okay, and I should be also setting the material somewhere. I think I do. Maybe at the end here or not at all. Okay, so at the end of build list, I do that trick with the material that you just saw. I think I'm doing it a bit. Oh no, so I'm setting the material on the skin meshes, so it's fine that I go through all the children. It's not that bad. Because pretty much if you look at this, it will have a skin mesh renderer with the material type set to Polygon Fantasy Hero, which is not as sexy as the other one. This is um, it's using. You could change the shader here, but might as well, since that it's executing only once at startup. It's good enough for me. Okay, so that's pretty much setting up the. Now I have my character with all the fancy stuff in it. How do I change the button? So let's go through a simple one that did not require me to write any code. So let's go for the face. Okay, this it's a what is it actually? I don't know. It's a kind of component that also has a script on it where you can add a method. So pretty much if I delete this, it's a method on change that receives an integer and a string. So that's why I had integers and strings in my thingy. So if you really want to add it, and this should be available, I guess, in all, if you're using a UI package, should have this kind of function. So I put my character that has the script on it. And then I look for all the scripts and it's my character creator. And where was I? On face, they appear at dynamic. So set head. It's different. So whenever you change something here, on change it will call my method and it will send these two parameters. And if you actually go in the code for this, because maybe you wanted to change it but failed miserably and that didn't happen. This is the on change event. It's defined here. And then if we look for it, okay, so on trigger change event, if it's defined, it will invoke my method with these parameters, and the trigger event, it's called whenever something happens. So when selecting an options, it will trigger my event. I think that's the only place. Yep. Good. So pretty much I add it here. You can do the same with I think initially I did it with a slider. So let's, you could just do add UI slider. I will put the slider here, maybe make it a bit bigger. Well, this is one sexy slider. Okay, you wanted to do whole numbers and it will go from 0 to 23, 22 maybe. And then you just need to add a value, so it's on value changed. And I think it sends the value. So if we go back to my silly class in the proper part, let's just do a public void set head, and it needs to receive a float because that one says float index. Okay, and then I can do int I equals matf I think it was something with int, round to int maybe, index, and then I can just do set head with I and dummy. Pretty cool. So you can create your UI. Of course, you would not define two set head functions, but because I took this road of perdition, might as well. bit slow today, but anyway, it's fine. Everything is fine. Okay, so now we add this value. Let me just drag my tiny little object here. And it has the setHead function. And let's test it out. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, right, because this is pretty much what setHead does, right? If I do face, can also change it from here, but also change it from here. Fun stuff. Okay, so based on your UI, you can call those methods. Just be careful of what's sending here and stuff like that. And although I like your slider, it was never meant to be. Now, when I have a multi-select, like the gender one, or is it the hair? Let's go for the hair. Should also be in the appearance selection, so hair selection. This is defined as a toggle group, and then it has a grid. And I did not realize this was a toggle group, so I just created a script and put it on the grid. And it will call this method of this one receives a string and a color. The reason it's sending a string or a color, because for this part I wanted to send the color that I see on the screen, but for this part I wanted to send the gender or the race. And this function it's from a script, toggle script, toggle group script, that I created because I couldn't figure out how to use the UI. And it doesn't do much, it just defines an event so that you can link to it. It will get all the toggles in the children. It adds a listener. Not sure if I needed this, but I think I copy pasted the code because I love copy pasting. And whenever onValueChange is called, it will loop through all the toggles, and the first one that it finds on, it will trigger the change event on that toggle. And what this does, wow, this is bad. It gets all the images that are behind that toggle. Um, it will get the image on that color and then call it with the toggle name and the color. I'm getting the color like this because that's how this grid here was defined. So you have color and then a color image and all the colors here. So in the end, it will get the value here and send it forward. And for all this that are toggle groups, I'm using my script to send it. And then back in the wonderful code. Whoa, who wrote this? Bad no name. Like for example, for set gender, I'm sending the name and the color, but for here I'm using the name to compare it. So that toggle is called gender male. And if they are equal, I send the gender to male, if not to female. And if it's a new gender, I disable the previous character, I send the gender to new and enable it. And the same for hair color, I just set the hair color. This was pretty easy, and you set it on the material. And for the races is the same, I just get these colors. I should also activate the elf ears for elf, but I'm just setting these 3 colors. Cool, cool. So I think that's pretty much it. It's still work in progress. I need to activate this function, but it will be pretty much to change the color on the face tattoos. I have no idea how I'm going to use this in a game. It's fine. So you see it has this color, and I think it's going to be a toggle between red and blue. And this UI is nice. You can also add some tooltip tests here, like describing, well, this is a great race, everyone. So just a quick, let's make, actually in this other side, there are really scratchy things. Bear dude. This, I also need to add something to rotate the character so you can use behind him. Need to continue with the eyebrows so he's not this mono brown. So this is better. And there are a lot more beards, but I just added this. Also, fun fact, when you change to a lady, it will not show, it will not be a bearded lady. Back to this guy, most likely he's gonna have white hair, but the red is also pretty nice. And you can change him to this. Right now he should also have elf ears, and I'm not sure if elf has I don't think elves have beard, right? So I also need to deactivate it. But that's pretty much it. There are also some really nice other tutorials on the net. I did this and did it myself because I couldn't find any interesting one. But once I started working and it was pretty much finished, I found a lot. And there's a guy that actually does a tool, so I'll also link that in the description. So that's pretty much it. Hope it helps. If you have any questions, or if you want to tell me that I'm doing anything wrong, please do. And if there's any interest for this, I'll continue doing this sort of videos and show my progress and helping you design. There are a lot of other better videos, but for this character creation part, I could not find any, so hope it's helpful. Thanks for watching. This is longer than I expected, and have fun. Bye.